All right. Good afternoon. I'm Travis County Judge Andy Brown. Thanks for joining us today. Today, on National Voter Registration Day, my office, along with the elected leadership in Travis County, took several important steps to defend the rights of Travis County voters and stand up to Ken Paxton's attempt to stop voter registration applications from reaching eligible voters. Registering people to vote and engaging in our democratic process is a cornerstone of our democracy and should not be a partisan issue. In fact, in 1993, Congress passed the National Voter Registration Act, which, along with the Voting Rights Act and the Help America Vote Act, stand as a pillar of our democracy and facilitates open and free elections in our country. The National Voter Registration Act, among other things, made it a duty of local government to take affirmative acts to locate and register eligible voters and mail voter registration applications. And that's exactly what Travis County did, and the Attorney General of Texas didn't like it. A few weeks ago, on October 7th, as we approached the deadline to register to vote for the November elections, the Travis County Commissioners Court and I, in partnership with our voter registrar Bruce Elfont, under the authority and responsibility given us under the National Voter Registration Act, started a program to identify eligible U.S. citizens who reside in Travis County and mail them voter registration cards. The citizens could fill in and submit them if they are eligible to vote. The voter registration cards ask the typical eligibility questions like age, citizenship, etc., and all of this was accomplished through the open government process and noticed publicly on the Commissioner Court agenda. Travis County was going about its business serving the citizens in our community and dutifully complying with federal and state election laws. We did not ask to be singled out by Ken Paxton, but we were. In Travis County, we stand up for what is right, and I will continue to fight so that eligible voters in Travis County have the opportunity to participate in the election process, even as the Attorney General works to undermine that right. It's no secret that Texas has some of the toughest voter registration laws in our country. We're one of the last states in the country without online voter registration. As a result, there are many Texans who are eligible to vote and face logistical barriers to registering to vote, which often includes lack of access to voter registration forms or knowledge about where to acquire them. Counties have a duty to register eligible Texans to vote and should do everything they can to lower barriers and help people engage in this democratic process, which is exactly what we are doing. While Ken Paxton works to undermine trust in our democratic process, Travis County will fight to preserve the right to vote. We will stand up for our residents and ensure that any eligible voter in Travis County can exercise their constitutional right to vote in November. Hoy, en el Día Nacional de Registro de Votantes, mi oficina, junto con los líderes electos del Condado de Travis, tomamos varias medidas importantes para defender los derechos de los votantes del Condado de Travis y para hacer frente a los intentos de Ken Paxton de impedir que las solicitudes de registro de votantes lleguen a los votantes elegibles. El registro de votantes y la participación en nuestro proceso democrático es un pilar de nuestra democracia y no debería ser una cuestión partidista. Thank you very much. I'm going to pass it on to my colleague Delia Garza, our county attorney.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Granger. Welcome to the Travis County Attorney's Office. I'm Travis County Attorney Delia Garza. I'm going to introduce the following members of our team. Lucio Del Toro is our first assistant. Leslie Dipple is our executive county attorney. And Chad Dunn is serving as outside counsel in this legal matter. It's incredibly important that the public takes note of what's happening today, because I can't emphasize this enough, because almost every time I say it in my head, it sounds ridiculous. Travis County has been sued for attempting to register eligible voters to vote. The law, in fact, not only allows this type of activity, it encourages it, and it calls it a duty. So what reality are we living in here when our own Attorney General has sued one of its local governments to attempt to stop them from registering eligible voters? The law, state law, not only allows this, in fact, has a provision that says that local governments can get reimbursed for specifically mailing out voter registration applications to its residents, which is exactly what our commissioners did, acting entirely within the law. And then the National Voter Registration Act is there, the state statute is there to comply with federal law. That's why that's there. The NVRA, the state statute is there to comply with the National Voter Registration Act. Today, Travis County once again fights back. So today we filed several pleadings. First, we filed a complaint in federal court against Ken Paxton and Secretary Jane Nelson for the state's attempt to violate the National Voter Registration Act. And we are asking for injunctive and declaratory relief to allow Travis County to continue to meet its obligation under federal law, the NVRA. Next, we filed what is called a notice of removal with the federal court, which has the effect of transferring from state court to federal court the lawsuit that Ken Paxton filed. This way, one federal judge has a jurisdiction to consider all of these issues in the entire matter that is governed by federal law. Next, we filed a notice in state court of the removal, as is the proper procedure. And lastly, we sent a notice letter to the Texas Secretary of State, as is required under the NVRA. The Texas Attorney General thinks that he is above the law. And Texans can no longer live in this alternate reality of the way things work here in Texas. Here in Texas, in this country, we still value the things that are foundational to us. Things like voting, things like registering to vote, things like making sure people have a voice in their government. These are all foundational things here in Texas and here in our country, in the United States of America. Last time I checked, we're still a democracy in the United States of America. And so if Ken Paxton won't fight for you, if he won't fight for us, if he's going to continue to fight against us, the Travis County will fight for you. And I'll pass it on to Commissioner Trevelyan.
It feels like an alternate reality here. At the end of the day, everyone who is eligible to vote should be able to do so. And they should not fear that their government will try to take them to task when they do. My reality, my community's reality is, my father graduated from college in 1953, then went to serve his country in 1957, got his master's in 1959, and when he lived in the Confederate South, Texas was a part of that, he came back home to Mississippi in 1959, and he could not vote. And they were asking questions like how many bubbles are in a bar of soap, making them pay poll taxes. So now at 94, even though he's aware of the politics that are happening around him, there are forces that are trying to keep him from voting. You should not be able to keep people from voting just because they don't want to vote from you or vote for you. Ken Paxton does not have a sense of history here, does not have a sense of understanding about how communities are impacted, and frankly, what he is doing is disgraceful. At the end of the day, Texas is not a Republican state, it is a non-voting state. And trying to eliminate 1 million people who are eligible to vote from being able to vote is a matter that should be shameful, should not be something that he is proud of. It is important that each and every person who is eligible to vote has the opportunity to do so. Only then are we sure that we're going to have a representative democracy. And when our state works against us, it's just shameful. And it does not acknowledge our real history that has existed in most of our lifetimes. These are things that we have seen. We didn't need anybody to tell us that 4 civil rights workers were killed in Mississippi because they were registering people to vote. 1964, within many of our lifetimes. At the end of the day, we have to understand what it is we're fighting for. We have to understand who it is we're fighting for. And at the end of the day, Ken Paxton is not on the right side of history here.
Bruce Elfont.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Bruce Elfant. I'm the Travis County Tax Assessor Collector and Voter Registrar. Travis County's had a long, robust voter registration outreach program that includes several thousand volunteer deputy registrars, hundreds of governmental and private sector partners, text to register, unregistered voter maps, door-to-door, deadline activities, and yes, mailings to eligible but not registered voters. This is nothing new, but apparently this is new to the Attorney General, who's trying to stop me from doing the job that state law and federal law says I should be doing. According to the Elections Performance Index, Texas ranks 29th among states in voter registration and 34th in turnout. With such dismal participation in our democratic process, one wonders why our state leaders aren't sounding the alarm. But instead of working to increase participation in our elections, our state leaders are focusing on telling us, election officials, what we can't do. We can't join the 23 states and District of Columbia that allow same-day voter registration, or the 25 states that have implemented automatic voter registration, or the 44 states in Guam that allow their citizens to register to vote online. And when it comes to keeping voter rolls accurate, Texas election officials can no longer rely on the multi-state partnership to identify those who have moved to or from other states, felons, duplicate records, patterns of possible voter fraud, or eligible but not registered voters in our community in Texas. So now the Texas Attorney General is telling election officials through his lawsuits that we can't even reach out to eligible but unregistered voters in accordance with state and federal law. In his lawsuit, the Attorney General expresses concern that a bunch of non-citizens will register to vote as a result of our sending out voter registration applications to eligible but unregistered citizens. Even if non-citizens were to engage in a conspiracy to intercept voter registration applications from the mailboxes of eligible citizens, the Secretary of State checks every application against DPS, Social Security, and other databases. With Texas' antiquated, largely paper-based voter registration system, incomplete, unreadable, or lost applications pose a far higher risk than non-citizens successfully being able to register to vote in the state of Texas. Travis County is assiduously follows state and federal election law, and we're proud that our voter registration strategies consistently result in our having among the highest voter registration rates in the state. Instead of telling election officials what we can't do, I look forward to a day when our state leaders will actually be committed to making Texas a voter registration and turnout leader among the states. Finally, I want to thank the county judge and our commissioner's court and our amazing county attorney team for your roles in standing up to this unwarranted and unlawful attempt to suppress our efforts to register voters in Travis County. Happy National Voter Registration Day.
All right.
All right, with that, we'll open up for questions. Statesman?
I wanted to clarify, you said earlier that you filed the notice of removal. Does that automatically take this case to federal court, or do you have to, a judge will have to grant that secondary approval?
It automatically removes it.
Automatically does.
Yes.
And that was filed today?
This morning.
Ready.
I wanted to ask about the process of choosing Civic Government Solutions as the company to help Travis County register voters.
Bruce, you want to talk about that? So the process for hiring any vendor at Travis County is the Commissioner's Court votes on it. Before that happens, the sort of county department, or in this case the voter registrar, came with a proposal. But Bruce, you want to talk through the logistics of that?
Well, the county put out the equivalent of an RFP. I can't remember the letters, but it's a bid, an offer for people to make presentations for whether they can do what we're asking them to do. And in this case, there was only one bidder, but it was put out to anybody.
AG?
Mr. Alpont, can you talk a little bit about where we are in the process of these voter registration cards already being mailed out, and if that is going to impact voters' ability to vote, or if there's other ways for people to register ahead of the deadline?
I don't know exactly where we are in getting those out. I will tell you that we're less than 3 weeks from the October 7th voter registration deadline. And we certainly want eligible citizens to, the first thing they should do is go to votetexas.gov and check their registration and make sure that they're registered at their current address. And if they're not, they can go to any post office or library to register to vote. They can fill out the application and mail it in. And we will have thousands of volunteer deputy registrars throughout the county at businesses and stores and other establishments registering voters. And if they can't figure that out, then they can contact the tax office and we can get them registered.
Right here.
A hearing? Chad?
The federal court will decide whether to hold a hearing.
Come on up. So this is Chad Dunn.
The federal court will decide whether to hold a hearing. Sometimes it makes decisions based on the papers, so we can't predict when that might happen, if it will happen.
Fox.
When was the RFP sent out?
We'd have to give you that information.
Yeah, we can get
I
that to
can
you.
follow up with you on getting that information. CBS.
How many people do you think are impacted by this? I mean, as far as being able to vote, who wouldn't be able to readily find another way to get registered and kind of bypass this?
I mean, it's a huge problem in Texas. The Texas legislature tries to do everything it can, it seems to me, to make it harder and harder to register to vote. Our attorney general is trying to scare people by doing things like what we're talking about here today. So I think there are hundreds of thousands, millions of Texans that are affected by that. So I think our little bit of sending out, doing our duty, of Bruce doing his job, of the Commissioner's Court voting to fund Bruce doing his job of registering voters is critically important. I wish every county in Texas did this because, as I mentioned earlier, we're one of the very last states that makes it so hard. You have to find a piece of paper and write that and mail it in instead of doing it online like the vast majority of other states.
Follow up right here with Fox.
Yeah, although there was only one company that filled out the RFP, you didn't necessarily have to choose the one, correct?
I mean, if we wanted the work to be done, I think Hector can get you the exact process, but there's a very specific process involving the auditor, the purchasing department, everything like that. We followed that to a T, and one company responded. And so if we wanted the work done, that was our option.
We'll do the last follow up right here.
Can you talk about the validity of those voter registration cards? If someone gets them in the mail, can they still use them? Can you kind of talk with voters about if they have one, can they still register and what that process looks like?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll let Bruce talk about that. But these are not pre-filled. These are a voter registration card that we're sending to someone. So they fill it out if they're an eligible voter. Bruce, what are they?
Sure. I mean, these are, as the judge said, these are blank applications that we're sending out. And we hope that when they arrive at households that there'll be one or more people in that household who need to either register to vote or update their address. You know, voter registration is kind of like selling a loaf of bread. It takes a bunch of, it's marketing 101. It takes a bunch of hits to get people's attention. And so we do a lot of things in Travis County to get people's attention and get them aware of the upcoming elections. And this mail out is just one more way that we're trying to get people's attention. And hopefully through all the things that we're doing, everybody who is eligible, who wants to register and participate in our democracy will be able to do so.
So just to be clear, you can still use those voter registration cards?
Yes, absolutely.
Is there any way to differentiate a regular voter registration to what you sent out? Are they the exact same thing?
They're the exact same thing.
Thank you all. Appreciate it. If you all need any follow up, please let me know and I'll follow up with you all.
Thank you.
Thanks.